Shit's muted, but I can hear myself now. Nice. Nice one, yeah. Yeah. Hold on. Trying to see. One. Okay. I don't want to feel like I have to yell and shit. What's studio mode? Oh, wow. Let's get that out of there. Is no source selected? I'm trying to figure out. If I'm actually streaming to where I'm supposed to be streaming to. Let's see. Best way to find out is to go to YouTube itself. Yikes. Let's see. Get. Oh yeah. Yeah. We're rolling. All right, boo. I'll have to talk to you afterwards. Probably around like 6. Love you too, boo. Bye. Alrighty. Well, hell yeah. Let's see if I can make some music happen. I don't know. Bam. I can't see myself. So we'll see how this goes. Yikes. I'm also supposed to be going live on. There it is. There it is. Oh man, it's kind of like riding a bike, but not really. Alrighty. Oh man, it's kind of. Bam. There we go. Kind of like riding a bike, but not really. Bam. We're gonna change this real quick. Book Club. Bam. There we go. Kind of like riding a bike, but not really. Bam. We're gonna change this real quick. Book Club. I feel like I have to like reset this up. I'm not sure. Also, I can't necessarily watch my own live because, yeah, I can't necessarily watch my own live because then it'll like replay the thing, replay the shit. Let's see. I don't know. Hey guys. Hey everyone. I know that you guys probably can't hear me. I'm over here. I'm over here. Actually, I probably should move y'all. I should move you guys over here. Hey, what's up, Moss? Look, you guys. Life has been lifing for me, so it's been a bit difficult to make the book club happen lately. Guess we could do like some updates and then go over a review.
This is how you get stuff done. Step 1,
yikes.
Download ClickUp. Step 2,
feel free to hop on over to the YouTube channel where I'm live. Oh my god, the acne is setting in. Okay. I gotta really sit down and figure out how to let's see. Yeah, we're live here. I don't know what I'm doing. Trini! What's up, y'all? Yes. Oh my god, we're doing this again. Or at least we're trying to, anyway. Yo, it's been a minute. And yes, I am live on YouTube. I am also live on YouTube. Trying my best to like figure out maybe it's in settings. I don't know. Cause I want to get, hey Dom, how you doing, ba? Let's see, my stream. Yeah. There was like a millisecond where I was able to like look at the chat on YouTube, like within my actual thing. I'll have to like do that again. I totally forgot that I couldn't do that. Yeah, so hold on, I'm gonna move you guys so you guys are like in front of me, so when I'm looking, I'm not like looking crazy. All right, don't get too nosy, y'all. Oop. Y'all already know my shit's haphazard like a motherfucker, you know? Shit is crazy, yo. Hi, guys. Hi. How is everybody doing? I hope very well, you know? If you hop on to YouTube, I fixed the audio issue. So that should be good. You should also be hearing like a little bit of music in the background too and shit. Like, I was so worried about the audio that I totally forgot about like chat rooms and all that other bullshit. You know, totally forgot about that shit. It's been a minute, you guys. It's been such a long time. A part of me kind of doesn't want to just like jump into reading right away. I kind of want to like, you know, give an update on things that have been happening first and do a review over everything that we have read thus far. Hell yeah. I was just trying to switch it up a little bit. You know, trying to do something a little different. Because you know we got to do the music and shit. You know what I'm saying? You know we got to do the music and shit. And without the music, then what are we doing? You know? So... yeah. So updates, you guys, before we dive into reviewing the book so far. A lot has happened. I've been traveling the world. I was in Australia for a spell. I was in Germany for a spell. Just hopping all over the place, which was really what was cock blocking the book club primarily. Just to travel. Back to back was just a lot. It was a lot. You know, and like normally when I'm traveling within the states, it's kind of easy for me to maneuver around, but it just wasn't happening. So all of February and a lot obviously of March was lost. What else happened? I caught myself a girlfriend the last time we talked. That came out of nowhere. It came out of nowhere. I know. Yeah, I got a little booski. You guys. I wasn't planning on it. Wasn't aiming for it, but you know, here he is, you know. Good. That's the one good thing. TikTok has brought two good things in my life. This book club and community and my now girlfriend. Those are two good things that I've gotten out of TikTok, you know? So that's not too bad, I guess. That's it's pretty solid, pretty legit, right? But yeah. So yeah, I caught a girlfriend. That's been a whirlwind in and of itself. So I was also traveling a lot to go see her because like any proper queer relationship we're long distance. It wouldn't be gay as fuck if we lived in the same city. You know, that would be wild. That'd be a little too much. So yeah, amazing human being. If any of you guys are on my Instagram, you have seen her. She has popped up just once, because I'm not trying to put all my shit on Front Street, you know. But yeah, that's a thing. I got into a car accident. That was another fun thing. And keeping it a stack, the car accident kind of made me almost not want to do the book club today, because, you know, muscle relaxers and all. But I've foregone the muscle relaxers and the drugs and shit, because I've missed you guys, and I've missed reading to you guys, and I've missed all of this stuff. And, you know, I've felt like such a shitty human being, because over the month that I've been away from the Patreon and the community and everything's kind of just like fallen down by the wayside. And I didn't really like that for us. I didn't like that for us at all. That kind of sucked. So to include all of like the special things that I said that we were gonna like do and look at and all this other good shit. But outside of the car accident, that I was in, you gotta dig for the Instagram. I don't just be giving the Instagram. Actually, Dominic, I will text you on WhatsApp my Instagram, because my Instagram is very much like it's not tailored in any way like TikTok is, you know. Like I've had my Instagram since Instagram was its own independent company and not owned by Facebook, you know. So like a lot of like personal shit is in there, so it's hard to find me. You got to really put some elbow grease into it at the very least. But Dominic, I will text you the IG and shit. But yeah, the car accident kind of like slowed things down a little bit, but not too much. I utilized my off time because I had to take some time off of work because I got rear-ended. Fucking DC traffic, yo. I got rear-ended by like this 18-year-old military service member who may or may not have fucking insurance. But you know, whatever. It is what it is. You know what I'm saying? We just gonna keep it moving, keep it pumping. But yeah, I had to take some day off from work because I could not see myself doing that hour and 45-minute drive into work while sore from the accident. So but I utilized that time a lot to like get my ducks in a row, get my bearings on things, figure out a lot of stuff, and, you know, get things rolling for you guys. You know, I've had the reaction videos to Castlevania in my inbox from my editor for like 2 weeks. And because of everything that was going on and me just fucking traveling everywhere, I couldn't just sit down and focus. Like, a lot of it is like, if I really was to like push myself hard, I probably could have pushed it all out. But, you know, neurodivergent things, it was hard for me to like push the shit out. So it was sitting in there, and it wasn't until I could actually like stop and just focus on like my house and my hobbies is when that was there. So, if you guys, ooh, let me not do that. Almost got in trouble. I forgot. Thought I was just on YouTube. I'm not. I'm on TikTok too. Anyways, if you guys are interested in joining the Patreon community, for those of you who have not joined, where it counts is the Patreon. It's free. All of the added additional content. Hey, what's up? Hey, Jordan, how you doing? All the additional content, like the reaction videos and all that stuff, the later or the previously had book clubs will be on the Patreon for you guys to check out. If you've missed out on anything, all of that will be there. And 2 episodes. I'm feeling great. I'm feeling good, you know. But yeah, 2 reaction episodes for Castlevania for all the nerds in the book club. If you guys are like really looking for that shit, it is already on Patreon. Go over there, check it out. Sometime this weekend I will record. I have not even touched Castlevania Nocturne, because that's how dedicated I am to making this like a reaction series for you guys. So sometime, probably not tonight because I gotta go to the gym, but probably Sunday, I will be recording hopefully the rest of season 2 of Nocturne and sending that to my editor, which I have an editor now. Which don't make it a big thing, you guys. Yes, I'm paying this editor to do this for shits and giggles for my little like pet project to you guys, like my love letter to y'all. But my editor is like one of my oldest friends, literally my second oldest friend. Like I've known this person for the second longest time outside of family. So like he's my homie. So I get a family discount is what I'm saying. So like it's okay. But he did an amazing job, you know. So at the very least, go check that out just for the work that he put into it. I literally came to him and I was like, look, I do not have the attention span right now to edit this. So can you do it for me? And he knocked that shit out of the park. I was like, look, man, I don't have notes for you. Like, here's kind of what I have in mind, but whatever it is you want to add to that shit, go do that. Go do that. I do not care. I do not care. Make it happen. You know, I was a little concerned because I wanted to like do like the first episode on YouTube so that like people can see and then go to the Patreon to check it out. But it already got copyright. It had a copyright infringement or whatever that they say on this fucking thing. So couldn't do that. But that's fine because the reaction videos are not for YouTube. It's not really for anybody to like, you know, I don't know. It's for you guys, the guys who have already been around, been here, been hanging out, been riding with me. So those 2 episodes are there. Please check it out. My editor's name is Adrian. Amazing human being. That's my brother. So I hope you enjoy it. I've watched the first episode of the reaction videos. It was pretty funny. He's a little bit of a smart ass. There are some jokes made in the editing at my expense, which I fucks with, you know what I'm saying? So y'all get to experience that. But yeah, outside of that, what else has happened? The empire is crumbling. You know, one of the fascinating things that I had to grapple with and digest as I was going through like this month and a half of being away from the book club is how similar and parallel a lot of what we were seeing over that time frame ran with what we were reading about in the book. To include watching yet another billionaire lose a shit ton of money all at once. Okay, if you guys don't remember the last chapter that we were talking about, there is that one Asian fellow who lost a shit ton, like a metric fuck ton of money. All right, so a lot of the things that we were uncovering in chapter 6 specifically, we got to see in real time. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but in real time, all of that was unraveling, which was also another reason why I wanted to like get back into the book club, because we were very much diving into some heavy stuff and some important stuff. Things that helped me, at the very least, to understand what it is that we were dealing with, looking at, and all that other stuff. And it's kind of like forced me to not be so heavily on TikTok, as at the very least just shooting my shit. Oh yeah, Jordan, we are reading this book right here. Oh, thank you for asking, because I forgot to invert this. I need to do that. That's important, right? Boop. All right, we are reading Vulture Capitalism by Grace Blakeley. Corporate crimes, backdoor bailouts, and the death of freedom. Yeah. No, and don't be sorry. Here in the book club, there's no such thing as dumb questions. They are all welcomed. Which actually that segues me into some important, you know, book club rules. Everybody, all 5 of you guys that are on here most of the time, y'all know exactly what I'm about to say. Here are the rules for book club, okay? I'm going to be reading this book out loud, okay? That's what we're doing. We're going to be reading this book together. If you know, don't like reading, can't read, whatever, not to worry. I will be reading out loud, so you can just listen to me read this book. If you want to hear the good audio, I highly recommend you hop to the Tube of You, because that's where this comes into play. Okay. And I did fix that audio. It sounds great. I feel like I think it does. Excuse me, my voice sounds different these days. The testosterone is testosterone. But yeah, so I read this out loud and we digest the information together. We process and unpack the information that we're learning from these books together as a group. We share our stories, we share our ideas, we share our thoughts. We look up words together, because in addition to us like digesting this very complex information, this is also like a little bit of a Hooked on Phonics type book club. You know, I sound words out because I've never read every word on the planet. Some of them bitches is hard to read, so I sound words out, all that other stuff. So if there's a word that we come across and I don't know the meaning of it, I will ask one of the fellow book clubbers to look that up. We tend to have a lot of people who are gung-ho about that, so guaranteed that's gonna happen. So we learn not just this information, but we also, you know, become more literate as we progress through the book, which is also a fun thing. Rules for the book club: be respectful and participate. Those are the only two big things. Okay, I got mods here. We are very vicious about protecting our space, so this is a very welcome space. Everyone is welcome to be here. You could be a MAGA supporter, you could be a liberal, you could be conservative, doesn't fucking matter. The only thing is that we are not here to debate or argue down or try to have a battle with the book. That's not what we're doing. What up, fam? How you doing? We're not doing that. We are digesting this information. If you haven't noticed, this book club has a bit of a lean. It has a bias. I am a Pan-African anarchist, so that's my bias. And since I'm reading out loud, that's the bias that we're going to be dealing with. However, I do try to be as respectful of people and their political opinions as possible. And I expect for everyone that is joining us to do the same, right? Sometimes, maybe once or twice, we might have somebody popping up into the chat. Not so much on YouTube, because they haven't found us yet on YouTube. Thank God. But on TikTok, we might have somebody who wants to derail from the goal, which is to read and digest the information in the book. That is a zero tolerance thing. You know what I'm saying? We do not play like that. So if you come in here on some fuck shit, I will address you directly and I'll tell you, hey, you're welcome to be here if you want to engage with what it is that we're doing. If that's not what you want to do, then I'm just going to block you, and then you'll never be able to talk to me unless you make another account. And then if you come back with the fuck shit, I'm just going to block you again. You know what I'm saying? Like that's kind of what we're going to do here. My mods have full range to be as draconian about protecting this space as they feel comfortable being. Okay, so if you get blocked on some fuck shit, you just got blocked on some fuck shit. I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you. Come correct or don't come at all. This is a very nice space. We are a very open, welcome, and warm community, and I would like to maintain that. So I've selected people who have great discernment on when people are on some fuck shit, and the people who are on some fuck shit tend to not be here for too long. Or they tend to join us. There have been a couple of times where motherfuckers have just popped up and hung out. Like they've calmed down and decided that they didn't want to do the troll thing and actually wanted to read. So there's options. One of those options is just not being on some fuck shit. I don't want to deal with it. The book club don't want to deal with it. Nobody wants to deal with that shit. Nobody wants to deal with that. There are plenty of other places where you can do that shit. It's not going to be here. Okay? This is not a, we tolerate everybody type space. We don't tolerate assholes. We just don't. But yeah, so those are the rules. Be nice to each other. Be nice to yourselves. Respect the material. And participate. Because this is us doing this. It's not just me talking. It's me engaging with you guys as well. The people in the book club make reading just as interesting and entertaining for everyone else as me reading makes it entertaining and all that other good shit. So, yes. Yeah, those are all the rules. We also try to do a break. I might be switching some things up here, because I might not be able to do 2 hours for a little bit. So I might just do like 1 chapter or 1 hour of reading from here on out and all that good shit. But we do take breaks. And in those breaks, we get our refreshments. This may or may not be a very, I don't know. It's hard seltzer. This is probably the whitest thing that I will do today is drink this hard seltzer. But, you know, I needed something that was chill but not crazy. You know what I'm saying? Special appearances by Baby Boy happens frequently. If you don't know, that is Marcel back there. It's the love of my life. There he is. That's where my finger is. Bam. Yeah. So we have frequent appearances by Marcel. We take breaks. We have music breaks. As you can hear, if you're on YouTube, there's music playing in the background. It's all scenic and like, you know, smooth and nice. You know what I'm saying? So like, again, if you really want that better audio and just overall better production, yeah, the tube of views. Only snag is that I won't be able to see the chat. Like I will, but you know, that's only when the music is off. But yeah. So what else? I think that's it. That's all of it. Now we get to dive into just doing a review of the book, because I feel like that's, since we've been away for so long, I have been away from you guys for so long, and I have not touched this book since the last time we had book club, to be honest. I've been touching a bunch of other books and webcomics and dissociating. So I need a review at the very least. I don't know about you guys, and I'm gonna try my best to figure out how to do that, you know, because I tried to look up the cliff notes for this book. It does not exist. They do not have cliff notes for this. Oh god. Ugh, I don't know if you heard that alarm, but that was there. Yikes. That's my son. Ain't nobody at my door. Get they asses. Who the fuck is at the door? Get that nigga. Tell him. Good job, Pop Pop. Good job, Pop Pop. Yes, good job. Protect this house. Who the fuck is that at the door? We gonna kill him. We're gonna kill him. Come here, baby. Look at the baby. Oh, that was a strong stretch. Okay. Everybody, this is the #1 protector, Mr. Marcel. He just, you know, made an appearance. He had to let everybody know not to fuck with us. We were busy right now. Hi, I love you too, Buff. Yes. So yeah. Oh. Yeah. You ready to get down? He's so handsome. They say that, you know, like low-key, every time I look at him, it's like he kind of looks like me. They say your pets look like their owners. Okay. Okay, get out of here. Go lay down. God, Christ. Okay, cool beans. All right, so yeah. Let me get my shit together. So yeah, we have to dive into a review of everything, right? So far of what we've read, the whole point and purpose and ethos of this book. I think there's some important things that we need to dive into just to be aware of all that stuff. Right now, I'm trying to like switch over to the thing and like do this thing. Oh, could just do that. Now I can see you guys in chat and read at the same time. Fuck yeah. I don't know if you guys are in there. Oh, there it is. There it is. Hey, we are in this bitch. Nice. Thank you guys. Thank you. I missed you too, Happy Ball. Oh, this is great. Yes. Yeah. We're back in business. I was trying my best to make sure that we were able to have like better audio and quality everything. You know what I'm saying? Excuse the mess that is my office. But fuck yeah. So, we got the rules out of the way. This is the book that we are reading, in case you guys didn't know. It's the book. And And I think we should do a review. If you guys are okay with that, then like let's just dive into that shit. Let's see. You would have thought that I would have like had this prepared a little bit better. You know, like that would have been helpful. But first of all, I think we should figure out who the fuck Grace Blakeley is, right? And yes, I am rolling as we go. All right, I'm just, you know, if we got any questions, this is what we're doing. Okay, so Grace Blakeley is an English economist, right? She's an economics and politics commentator, columnist, journalist, and author. She wrote this book that's been making the rounds, and she's kind of been circulating this book for about like a year and a half, popping up. That's where I actually found this book. She was on Novara TV, which is a really great news source, in my opinion. I checked them out. They're based out of the UK, so it gives me some insight on what's happening in the OG colonizer land, which is really nice. And they have some amazing, thought-provoking guests on their show. So that's where I found her. She promoted this book. I really enjoyed what it is she was talking about, right? Because in addition to us not having that much language as like people on the actual left, like let me not say that, as anti-capitalists, we don't necessarily have a lot of language that kind of dives into exactly how these things are happening. You know, the mechanisms, the structure. We talk about the structures, but we don't talk about how these structures were made, the history of them, who gets to benefit, who doesn't. A lot of these concepts are not introduced to us, right? So she does an amazing job with this book, kind of laying out what capitalism in the 21st century actually is, and the questions that we need to be asking ourselves when it comes to the idea of capitalism, right? We are geared and conditioned to think that there is a separation between the public sector, which is the government, and the private sector, which is, you know, capitalist enterprise, right? But we know that that's not the case. We can see, like, more blatant. I don't know if there's an even more blatant time to live in than now that shows us that there is definitely a relationship between the private and public sector, between big business and government, and particularly between banks and big banks and our government, you know, and how things get created. Things like laws, things like how our lives are structured, you know? And we've been conditioned to think that like the planning of society is separate from private business, when in all actuality, thanks to the symbiotic, incestuous, deep relationship between our government and these banks, a lot of time planning is happening via the government, right? The government is used by private enterprise to protect themselves from their mistakes, to protect their property, all that other good shit. So this book helps us to understand how exactly that happens, and gives us some amazing examples of how exactly that happens. One of the main ethos and the thing that we are trying to uncover while reading this book is planning happens in a society, period, right? There is going to be either a group or person that gets to plan how the society is structured. That is inevitable. No matter if it's a communist country, a socialist country, a capitalist country, planning is inevitable by the state, right? And the question is, who gets to do that planning, and who benefits from those plans, right? And that's essentially what this book is uncovering, is who gets to do the planning. Chapter 6, we went over exactly how the state plans, right? And how that planning with the state blends in with the planning that private sector has for the rest of us, right? A lot of the laws, a lot of the loopholes that get created for these banks and big businesses happen through the legislator, right? And that dictates how courts get to decide things, and who gets to be in favor and who gets to not be, who gets to be seen by the blindness of, you know, lady law and Lady Justice and who doesn't. You know, like all of those things play a part. So chapter 6 delves into that stuff. We also went into just understanding the relationship, because oftentimes we talk about this weird incestuous relationship between the private sector and the public sector, but we don't necessarily know where that comes from or why that happened. One of the things that I really enjoyed about this book so far is that I can tell that she's reaching out to other economists and, intellectual thinkers. And she touches on some history, right? For those of you who were here in the previous book that we read, she touches on like exactly how liberalism lends itself, or neoliberalism lends itself into this deepening relationship between the private and public sector, right? One of the main examples that she uses for that and how the private sector and the public sector play together is with Boeing and all of those flights that before this, or when this book was being written, was just like 4 or 5 flights falling out of the sky. Starting this year, it's like 4 or 5 a day. I don't want to be dramatic, but like Boeing is killing us left and right, and we're allowing them to do that because our laws allow them to do that. So she uses that as an example of showing how the public sector kind of shields the private sector, even not just shield them from the mistakes of their like fucked up business practices, but shields them from the mistake of killing citizens, and not just citizens, but killing people, right? And being able not only to shield themselves from any responsibility or accountability for doing that shit, but actually helps them to make a profit in killing us, which is wild. Guys, did I miss anything? Did I miss anything so far? Is there anything that you guys really enjoyed about this book that you remember before I dive into chapter 7? Yes, no, maybe so, kind of, sort of, not really. I'm giving everybody a chance. I know there's a lag. Just remembering how angry it is, very angering. That's one thing that I definitely don't miss about this book. If you guys have never read this book, if you guys are not familiar with it, it is enraging. We have talked about exactly how the financial crisis unfolded in 2008, how it was rebuilt, and a lot of the mechanisms that were used to rebuild the bubble for what we're dealing with right now. Yeah, it is. This book is going to piss you all off. It's going to piss you off. We talked about exactly how venture capitalists roll in to bankroll a lot of these, disruptive companies, especially in the Silicon Valley and like tech sector and all that other shit. Just to reiterate, Vulture Capitalism by Grace Blakeley is the book that we're reading. But yeah, it dives into all kinds of things of how this country is kind of built to benefit the very wealthy. And I'm not talking about just like celebrities, but actual like the people who run these big banks, the people who run not only the big banks, but also these big capitalist firms. We dove into BlackRock. You guys remember that? And Vanguard. And how, a lot of these companies and corporations are pretty much controlled by like 3 entities, because they have the lion's share of the stocks and, the lion's share of the say in these companies, right? So even though it feels like there's all these different sectors and businesses out here, at the end of the day, who they are working for is for 3 fucking firms. BlackRock is usually like the big one that everybody hears and talks about and shit, especially when it comes to the real estate bubble that we're dealing with in the real estate crash that we're dealing with. But there's also Vanguard. These are all financial firms that come in and, either put companies under a momentous amount of debt or make them, beholden to them. Which is kind of why everybody in the private sector is veering in a specific direction. That direction, spoiler alert, is fascism. the third way, as some might say. I might call it the third way just to like not get in trouble on TikTok or on YouTube, because you know these motherfuckers sensitive and shit. But yeah, so that's kind of what they're bringing us into. So I think that's we haven't touched on it yet, but that's the death of freedom part of that book that we're gonna get into. Austerity, yes. Trini in the YouTube chat brought up austerity as another thing that we touch on in the book, which austerity is one of those things that is like the Fed chair. Hey, Anna, how you doing? The Fed chair might make it seem like they need to do all these measures to save the economy, but really, and especially when it comes to austerity, it is a tool that the people that run our lives use to put us in our place, to squash any kind of labor movements, because that's another big thing that our landlords don't like, or overlords don't like, is labor movements, us consolidating our power as workers, because that is the flip side of that coin. They use austerity to squash that down. And austerity could be anything like what the Fed chair did earlier this year and last year with raising the interest rates for the Federal Reserve, which would in turn raise the interest rates for all of the banks that are borrowing the money from the Fed, right? The Federal Reserve being our country's bank that's run by all of the major banks. Kind of weird shit, you know what I'm saying? So we kind of like cut their taxes. We cut taxes for the very, very wealthy and these banks and shit, and not get revenue. And because we don't have revenue as a country, we have to go and borrow money from who? Those banks who don't pay fucking taxes. And we have to pay interest on the money that we borrow from them, you know? So that's like a way to do that. So when the Fed raised the interest rates, that essentially forces companies to downsize, or it gives companies an excuse to downsize, because the first thing that businesses do in capitalism is cut their biggest expense. Their biggest expense will always be the workforce. That's how we get a lowering of employment. Now we have a bunch of people unemployed, keeps everybody lockstep, not wilding out because they need a job. And they need a job because they need food and water and air and all other bullshit that they pay us for, or that we have to pay them to have. So yeah, that's something else that we've dived into in this book, which has been really, really interesting. Yeah, and hey, it's happy again, for those of you who don't know, we're having a great time on the YouTube side. The audio is better, is all that is. Audio is better, and you'll be able to hear the music. But yeah, I have not learned how to like patch in TikTok or like my phone. I feel like I probably could do that. We're gonna take a break, and I'm gonna see how I can make that happen. You know what I'm saying? Because maybe we can do it. You know, maybe we can do it. I got an idea. Sorry, I digress. But yeah, that's basically what we've been going over on the book. All things are possible, you know, through Joe Pesci and God, whichever God that is. Yeah. All that being said, I kind of want to do my idea. Hey, Luggy, thank you for joining us on the YouTube side of things. Again, reiterate, if you guys want the better audio quality, if you want the better production quality, all that good shit, that's going to be on the tube of views. The link to that is in the doobly-doo in my profile, all that good shit. But yeah, I was thinking, since it's been so long, right, and we kind of didn't go that far into chapter 7, right, I figured we would just restart chapter 7. Are y'all cool with that? We just restart chapter 7, and then, like, you know, I don't know. It's a thick-ass chapter. I remember this being a thick-ass chapter. But then we'll be in, like, section 2, which is wild. Yeah. Yes. Okay, so restart chapter 7. All right, everybody's saying that sounds good. We got the audiobook. Hell, motherfucking yeah. Hell yeah. Okay, bet. So, we are going to restart this motherfucking chapter. For those of you who don't know, if you're just new here, I am getting ready to read Vulture Capitalism by Grace Blakeley. Not only am I going to be reading this, I'm also going to be digesting the information that I'm reading. I encourage you guys to digest this information along with us. You know, if you have, there is 8 of us on TikTok, 7 of us on YouTube, probably the same people. But let's just pretend that it's just 2 different groups of individuals, right? And that means we have what? 15 people. 15 individuals, well, 16 to include myself. We have 16 individuals here with a wealth of knowledge, you know. Considering some of us are in our 20s, some of us are in our 30s, let's just ballpark it and say we got like 150 years of life experience here, okay? I say all that to say, if you have a tidbit, or if a light bulb went off in your head, please share it, okay? Your lived experience, your professional experience, all of that stuff is valuable, and it can help us to understand this text a little bit more, right? So I'm going to be bringing my lived experience and my expertise from my day job and my expertise from my degree and all the other cool, cute shit that motherfuckers be trying to like leverage on people. And I'm going to bring that into my analysis of what I am reading in the book. I expect you guys to do the same thing, and I expect you guys to feel comfortable enough to share that with us. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so that'll be good deal. Okay, you guys are more than welcome to do that stuff. Yeah, so just to make sure before we jump into here, everybody got they refreshments and their vices. Okay, I got mine. I'm about to, let me see how I can, I'm just gonna slide over here and imbibe. Just quickly. Just ever so quickly, you know? Cause yeah. I'm just gonna imbibe right quick. You know, over yonder. Actually, I don't have to be that dramatic about it, because one of the cool things that I learned that I can do, especially on YouTube, because YouTube is where it's at. Boop. I can just turn that shit off. Why? Hey! It is. It's not lit. It was not lit. It was not lit. That's why I kept clicking it. I wish it was. That would have been nice. But yeah. Okay. So we're back into it. Everybody got their shit, right? They got their vices. You got your drinks. You got your refreshments. All that good stuff. You know? I wish it was lit, you know? Yeah. Hold on. I gotta. You know, no tobacco products online. You know, can't do that. That's terrible. Think of the kids. Think of the children. Okay. Think of the children. All right. So I'm assuming everybody got their drinks and shit. Baby boy is upset and pouting, as he normally is when we're on book club. So, all right, great. If we're all settled. Yeah, it's really good incense. All right, great. I'm gonna take my swig. Alrighty, guys. I know that the audio is good on YouTube. For my TikTok peeps, is the audio good for y'all? Do I need to project my voice a little bit, or can I talk like this? You'll let me know eventually. Bet. Okay, so. I don't know. Let's see. Ooh. Awesome. Chapter 7 of Vulture Capitalism by Grace Blakeley. Money at 6%. How empires plan. So if we remember, we were going over how states plan in chapter 6. Now we're going over how empires plan in chapter 7. Oh, that's fine. And you can be quiet. You're more than welcome to be quiet. It's cool. Sometimes people just want to like relax to my voice, which I don't know why you guys would want to subjugate yourselves to that, but thank you. Okay. And I'm going to try my best to do some voices. Accents and shit. Who knows? Some of these motherfuckers sound like literal fucking supervillains. So we might be able to make this shit happen. All right. The United States claims never to have had an empire, but it did. Oh, which, damn, every time this happens, like, I got, like, all these books. Side note, I don't kink shame. I'm not going to yuck your yum at all. Side note, when we touch on things that we've already touched on in a previous book that we've read, I try to, like, give y'all a heads up and shit. I be running around my fucking house all day because, like, I have literal books everywhere. I don't know where the books are. But when she's talking about this, highly recommend you guys check out the book How to Hide an Empire by Daniel Immenwar if you want to learn exactly how the United States hides its empire. Okay? Continuing on. I'm going to try to not do that so much because, you know, time and shit. Anyways. So, yeah. The U.S. colonized the Philippines, Puerto Rico, Hawaii, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and Guam, among others. Most of these were small territories that were ultimately incorporated into the United States itself, with differing levels of autonomy. But the U.S. occupation of the Philippines, a country of over 100 million people, was more typical colonial behavior, which, again, let's take this off. Bam. You guys could probably even hear me even better now. Again, if you guys check out How to Hide an Empire by Daniel Immenwar, you will see just how typically colonial and bloodthirsty the taking over of the Philippines actually was. But again, I digress. You know, most of these were small territories that were ultimately incorporated into the United States itself, with differing levels of autonomy. But the U.S. occupation of the Philippines, a country of over 100 million people, was a more typical colonial endeavor. The United States ruled over the country for more than 40 years between 1899 and the Second World War. By the end of 1945, 135 million people lived under U.S. jurisdiction outside the mainland. So outside of the continental U.S., 135 million people rest under its jurisdiction. Terrible. As the Spanish Empire broke apart over the course of the final decades of the 19th century, the United States was there to pick up the pieces. Filipino independence leaders initially believed the U.S. had come to liberate them and had already issued an independence declaration by the time U.S. troops arrived. Pause. Doesn't that rhetoric sound a bit familiar? I wonder if we were to substitute the Philippines for, like, I don't know, Greenland, and look at the propaganda from the United States at this time, I feel like there would be some parallels of the United States saying that they're coming in to be the grand liberator for a country who is obviously being ruled by terrible individuals who just don't know how to run a country. And we just gotta free them. Or we can encourage them to free themselves. You know? It's just parallel. I feel like we've experienced that at some point in time this week, you know, at least last week. Okay, continuing on. Filipino independence leaders initially believed the U.S. had come to liberate them and had already issued an independence declaration by the time the U.S. troops arrived. In fact, the U.S. and Spain had brokered a secret deal at the end of their war to ensure a peaceful handover of power, with the U.S. paying $20 million for the territory after a peace treaty was signed in Paris. Wild. And again, they really did make the Spanish-American War look super duper bloody thirsty. And in the previous book, in How to Hide an Empire, we learned through Daniel Immerwahr just how much of a fucking theater queen Teddy Roosevelt was, because he utilized that particular situation, well, Puerto Rico specifically, and Cuba, but he used that to elevate his status. So, again, parallel, just a parallel. You know, there's a lot of reality TV star presidents that we have. We just, you know, didn't know what to call them until the one that we have now. The Spanish Governor General reportedly stated that he was, quote, willing to surrender to white people, but never to the native population. Okay, this is as an Afro-Latino, I just got to point that out. You know, like, Spain considers themselves white. So, just throwing that out there. But they were willing to surrender. And I say this often. After this war, this is when Anglo-Saxons consider themselves better whites than the Spaniards. Because once you surrender, you're submitting. You know, you gotta, with white supremacy, you gotta be the pitcher. You can never be the catcher. The second you're the catcher, that means you're impure. You know, that's, you know, it's never been the same since. When independence forces met those of the U.S. in Manila, thousands of Filipinos were killed. The United States had succeeded in turning the Philippine War of Independence into the Philippine-American War. U.S. rule over the Philippines was long and brutal. After defeating Spain, the U.S. immediately set about slaughtering what remained of the Philippine independence movement. Whole towns were razed to the ground in the drive to pacify the U.S.'s newest colony. Just as a heads up, Greenland. and if you're Canadian and you're watching this, as a heads up, you know, as a heads up, if it were to happen, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying that is very plausible, but if it were to happen, just know you would be in the position of the Filipinos at this juncture if it were to happen. Okay, so just remember, they're the ones that, you know, were fighting for independence, thought they got the independence, and then had their entire independence movement eradicated by the people they thought were helping them get independence. That's the side that we're saying that you might be. So, you know, don't let your conservatives lead you down that path, is what I'm saying. Don't let them. Don't let them do that to you. I don't think y'all want them kind of problems. The Philippines hasn't really recovered ever since. Yeah. So, they set out to destroy the rest of the independence movement, and the U.S. troops, well practiced in the art of racism, abused the local population. Rebellious town people were herded into reconcentration camps where they could be more easily monitored. The military captured and tortured those suspected of harboring nationalist sympathies. Over the course of the pacification campaign, as many as 750,000 Filipinos died. Many from diseases that had been transported by American troops, which spread particularly quickly among malnourished Filipinos living in close quarters in U.S. camps. Just, yeah. That sounds like a genocide. You know what I'm saying? Just a little wee one. You know, now that we have a fresh example to look at, doesn't that sound like genocide to y'all? It sounds like genocide to me. That's crazy. One of the most striking features of the U.S. occupation of the Philippines was how rarely it was ever discussed. Initially, the Philippines was referred to as a colony, but But as it became clear that such a characterization would not fit with the self image of a democratic post colonial nation, the designation was changed to territory. The greatest challenge for the U.S. government, as with all the territories it colonized, was determining how millions of black and brown people could be incorporated into an allegedly democratic citizenry without upsetting the balance of power within the U.S. itself. White supremacy is at the root of all of this shit every time. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy, yo? In the Philippines, the answer to this question seemed simple enough. The U.S. had conquered the Philippines, and it would rule over the local population as it had the people of Puerto Rico, Guam, American Samoa, and the U.S. Virgin Islands, who remain disenfranchised to this day. There was one problem with this tactic. The U.S. claimed to be a democratic and anti-imperialist nation. It had spent much of the early 20th century encouraging other empires to grant independence to their colonies. U.S. anti-imperialism was, of course, entirely self-interested and mostly directed towards other states. After all, how could U.S. corporations dominate the rest of the world if whole swaths of it were guarded by imperial powers? But the Philippines still presented some stubborn problems for America's image. It had to be controlled without appearing to be dominated. American rule had to be planned without the appearance of planning. In 1916, Congress passed the Jones Act, promising the Philippines independence whenever the country achieved a, quote, stable government. Precisely what this phrase meant had been elaborated by General Leonard Wood, former Governor General of the Philippines and military governor of Cuba, who remarked, he sounds like an evil bastard. Let's see, what kind of evil voice can we do? Is he like dark and seedy? Like, yes. Oh yeah, I like that. Okay. Okay, here we go with the voices. Here we go. General Leonard Wood said, yes. When people when they ask me what I mean by stable government, I tell them money at 6%. I gotta work on it. I kind of liked it. It sounds schizophrenic, and I'm low-key digging that. Continuing on. This anecdote should give an idea of the U.S.'s true aims in the Philippines. Rather than an unruly and potentially socialistic, independent government capable of realizing economic as well as political sovereignty, the U.S. wanted to create an obedient and willing recipient of U.S. investment. After the Second World War, during which the Philippines experienced brutal treatment at the hands of the Japanese, the U.S. finally agreed to hand over power to a stable government. This government just so happened to be one that allowed the U.S. to establish military bases across the newly independent country, as well as granting unlimited access to U.S. corporations seeking to exploit its natural resources. The idea was to, quote, attain a degree of control over Philippine economic life unprecedented even during the colonial period. The CIA effectively ran the country after independence, engineering election victories for pro-Washington candidates. The infamous crushing of the left-wing, I'm gonna fuck that up, Hukbalahap, I feel like, Hukbalahap Rebellion. If anybody can, spell that out to me phonetically, like how I'm supposed to say it, I would greatly appreciate that. And I appreciate that, Raven. Thank you for being actually afraid. I know it's a spooky voice. I'm gonna save it for Halloween. That's what I'm gonna do. Look, the shit. I'm going through puberty in my 30s, you guys. Bear with me, please. But yeah, so they've been doing this shit, and they squashed the left-wing rebellion, the Hakabalahap Rebellion, in 1954, involving the use of napalm and psychological warfare based on stories of a fictitious vampire. Is counted as a major victory for the CIA. So them coming up with psyops about vampires and doing all kinds of chemical warfare against the Philippines. That's how they got them under control. That's terrifying. That's terrifying. Okay, continuing on. The CIA's involvement didn't stop there. One U.S. historian later discovered that Langley had taken to writing the president's speeches and drugging his opponents. Right? Fucks up Twilight, doesn't it? Actually, you know what? If the CIA really did invent vampires, I think they would have invented Twilight vampires. Like those are the type of vampires. They wouldn't look as like fruity as they do, you know. They wouldn't be as fruity as they are. However, they would be the exact, like, you know, that, you know, one man, one woman, you know, no sex till marriage. Those the Twilight vampires are absolutely CIA vampires. I'm gonna stand by that assessment. Sorry if you guys don't like that. Hey, what's up, V? How you doing, boo? We're doing book club today. Yeah, but yeah, if you like the Twilight vampires, I'm sorry. you're a Fed. You might not be a Fed. You may just be a Randall. You guys remember Randall from Recess? You know, like, most people are not Feds. Most people are Randalls. Think about it, okay? A Fed is Miss Finster. Most people are Randalls. You need to watch out for them. And V, I'm so sorry that you're sick. You want to come hang out with us? We're like chilling, you know, drinking, having, you know, live mints while I read. If you do, and like, I don't know if my voice is gonna make you feel better. Like I said, your voice helps me to go to sleep. I don't know if my voice is gonna help you get some rest. But if you wanted to hear my voice with better quality, you might want to go on my YouTube channel, because I'm live on YouTube right now as well. So like, you can hear this better. At some point, I need to take a break and see if my idea works. Because if I can get this here, then it's a wrap for you hoes. It's a wrap. It's a wrap. Y'all gonna be more in love with me than you already are. Okay? If I can get this audio quality onto TikTok, man, y'all gonna be up in my DMs and you're gonna be mad because I'm gonna have to curve you hard. It's gonna be unfortunate, but funny. Okay? Anyways. All right, so yeah, everybody send some well wishes to V so that V can get better. Hopefully it's not COVID. You better have gotten tested for COVID. Make sure you're not that sick, okay? But yeah. Okay, so here we go. So the CIA came up with vampires and psyops and shit to fuck up the fuck up and control the Philippines. That's what we were talking about. Okay. The greatest challenge for the U.S., as with all the territories it colonized, was determining how... Wait, I did this already. Did I do this already? Yeah, we were talking about psyops. Bam, 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 bam. Okay. We're back. My bad. So yeah, the CIA crushed this rebellion and used napalm and psyops to do that shit, and vampire stories to do it. And the CIA's involvement didn't stop there. One historian later discovered that Langley had taken to writing the president's speeches and drugging his opponents. CIA secret agent Edward Lansdale, an early expert in psychological warfare, a skill he used to great effect in both the Philippines and Vietnam, reportedly physically beat one candidate when he failed to comply. Much to the delight of the United States, which had supported his campaign, Ferdinand Marcos was elected president in 1965. By the time of the election, Marcos was already a controversial figure in Filipino politics. His father, Mariano, had been drawn and quartered. He is dead. His dead body. That was an awkward laugh. It came at a very wrong time. But just, I got a picture in my head of him being like lynched. Sorry. Had to release the tension somehow. All right, so yeah, his father, Mariano, had been drawn and quartered. His dead body left hanging in a tree by guerrillas for alleged collaboration with the Japanese during the occupation. That should give you guys a clue on like how much Japan and their imperial endeavors are hated by the rest of Asia. Well, that's an extreme reaction, you know. For alleged collaboration, that is an extreme reaction. Fuck. Years earlier, Mariano had lost an election for a seat in the Philippine House of Representatives. His opponent, Julio Nalundasan, I fucked that name up too. I'm so sorry. So sorry. Julio was found dead in his home from a gunshot wound the following day. The young Marcos, his father, and his two uncles were accused of conspiring to commit that murder. And both the young Ferdinand and one of his uncles were given the death sentence, though this was later overturned. Marcos fought in World War II until being taken prisoner by the Japanese, and then being released under mysterious circumstances. Evidence gathered by the Washington Post later revealed that Marcos's release was likely the result of his father's collaboration with the Japanese, and not Marcos himself. Fuck. The things you do to save your kids. Wild. Yeah. Following his release, Marcos claimed that he had been heavily decorated for his bravery during the war, though these claims were also found to be largely false. But the greatest controversy to mire the Marcos name came when he entered office. The Marcos administration was dogged with accusations of corruption, and Marcos' wife, Imelda, became a byword for venality and extravagance. Both became close friends with President Ronald Reagan, and the U.S. was able to exert extraordinary influence over the Marcos government. Under pressure from the President Johnson, and reversing an earlier position, Marcos agreed to send Filipino troops to support the doomed U.S. war in Vietnam. As discontent with the regime mounted, Marcos's defense secretary faked a threat on his own life to engineer and transition toward authoritarian rule. So, you know, I'm not saying something like that would happen, but I'm saying if it were to happen, this administration would be the perfect administration to try to pull that off. The only thing is that they would fuck it up somehow. You know, like they would try to do it, and then like I don't know, an email would get leaked because somebody butt dialed the Pizza Hut guy, and the email gets leaked, and it comes to find out that it was all like for show. You know what I'm saying? Like that's how it feels like that would happen if this administration were to do something like that. And not to go on a fucking mini rant or anything like that, but like we deserve better con artists than this. You know what I'm saying? At the very least, you know, be exceptional in the con. You know, it's like I think that it's like brilliant. They're failing upwards. It's not even really brilliant. They're failing upwards, you know? Like they're failing up the ladder of authoritarianism by accident, you know? Because the shit is so bombastically bumbaclat wild, you know? Like it's just so insane that it's hard to really take it fully seriously. You know, like I feel like everybody has just a little bit in them where they're just like, ain't no way, bro. Everyone, to include me, I feel like there's like a little bit. Some have more than others, but all of us kind of just be like, this is fucking wild. And because of that, they just be fucking shooting for the fences. And like we kind of tolerate a lot of it. We kind of tolerate a lot of it because it doesn't really necessarily match the cartoon villainy of fascism that we were raised to understand. You know, like the fascists in the Looney Tunes cartoons don't look like the fascists that we're dealing with right now. You know, even the Looney Tunes fascists had a little bit of organizational skills. You know what I'm saying? They had a little bit of like, you know, they had their shit together. They had their shit together, even in the Looney Tunes. So for these people to not have their shit together, I can see why a lot of people are not really seeing the situation for how dangerous it can be. You know, like, sure, it's scary. A lot of the scary shit is happening, but like at the same time that they're managing to disappear whole ass individuals, which they've been doing a lot of practice since like 2016. Well, no, really since like 2012. Since Occupy Wall Street, they've been practicing disappearing people. I digress. But like since they've been practicing doing that shit, they managed to do that fairly efficiently, which kind of lets me know that that's the part that is the structure. That's the machine working as designed. And then we have these assholes who are in control of the machine. And they like accidentally include a journalist on a signal chat. You know what I'm saying? It's like, obviously there's a chasm here. Because it just, I cannot fathom that the masterminds behind that machine are the masterminds behind having a classified chat in Signal. You know? Like, especially just like a couple of like 3 fucking weeks, 4 weeks after you just jettisoned a bunch of trans and queer people that, you know, have clearances and shit out because they had a sex chat, which was just them talking about their experiences as trans people. Like that, whatever was going on with the trans folks in them chat rooms, I guarantee you did not pose as much of a national threat to American people as these assholes in a fucking Signal chat. Like, I cannot. That shit blows my mind. Oh my God. Wild work. I just can't believe it. I cannot believe it. I can't believe it. I can't. I have to, but I can't. Yes. Yes. You know what I'm saying? Like, it highlights a lot. You know what I'm saying? It highlights a lot. You know, it very much highlights so much that a lot of the U.S. government is held together by gum, prayer, and twink cum. You know what I'm saying? Like, not to be vulgar, but apparently that is all that Washington is running off of right now. You know, like over-the-counter prescription drugs, twinks, and cocaine and ketamine. Like that's all that's keeping this government together. Because, God damn. Fuck. Crazy work. Anyways, I'll digress before I get in trouble with TikTok. So yeah, these corrupt motherfuckers were doing a lot of fucked up shit on behalf of the United States. Okay. And Marcos's defense secretary faked a threat on his life so that he can shift everything to authoritarian rule. Yeah, that's what took me on that tangent. We're gonna fucking slide right past that exit again. He claimed that communists had tried to kill him, leaving Marcos with no choice other than to suspend the democratic process, much to Washington's delight. Thousands of people, mainly communists, were killed in the transition, their bodies dumped in public places in order to terrorize Marcos' enemies. As well as using Marcos as its puppet, the U.S. exercised its power over the Philippines via the world's latest international financial institutions, like the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. Robert McNamara, the Ford whiz kid and former Secretary of Defense we met in Chapter 2, became head of the World Bank in 1968. Those of you who are just joining us into this book right here, I just want to remind everyone that we see this pattern often of individuals who've worked in the public sector finding their way into high power positions in the private sector and vice versa, right? They just ping pong back and forth, which really highlights the blended nature. Oh, uh-oh. The live got restricted. No. No. Oh, no. Oh, that's true restrictions, you guys. Fuck. Ugh. I think it was the twink thing. I think that's what got him. Just so y'all know, if TikTok goes away, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? But you can also follow the book club on YouTube. Follow it on YouTube. So you can hear all of the crazy shit that comes out of my mouth. And, I don't know. If they ban me from live for like 3 weeks or some shit. It's just better on YouTube. I'm just saying. It really is. It really is. Anyways, I digress. So yeah. A lot of fucked up shit. Doing a lot of fucked up shit. Fucking over people's lives. Creating financial institutions like the World Bank and International Monetary Fund. Robert McNamara, the Ford Whiz kid. That's the guy who is the head of the World Bank. Yikes. In this role, McNamara was centrally involved in sustaining a flow of aid to Marcos' brutal authoritarian regime with the aim of securing investment opportunities for international capital. Much of this aid ended up in the pockets of Ferdinand and Imelda Marcos. Walden Bello, the Filipino activist and academic who was part of the resistance to the Marcos regime, was instrumental in proving that the U.S. government and the World Bank were working together in the Philippines. Bello, a member of the Communist Party of the Philippines, was arrested for protesting Marcos's regime in the 1970s and was released only after a hunger strike. He and fellow researchers later broke into the World Bank headquarters to steal thousands of pages of documents relating to the lending program to the Philippines, proving beyond doubt that collaboration between the World Bank and the U.S. was happening. When Bello ran for vice president under Leody de Guzman in 2022, the pair were defeated by none other than Marcos' son. 2022 is just 3 years ago, y'all. It's looking like the same people who were doing the fuck shit then are doing the fuck shit right now. Kind of crazy. Kind of crazy. You crazy, crazy girl. The U.S. colonization of the Philippines was brutal, but it did not end with formal independence. The Philippines has existed in a state of what Kwame Nkrumah, Ghana's independence leader, referred to as neocolonialism, a condition in which a state is, in theory, independent and has all the outward trappings of international sovereignty, but in reality, its economic system and thus its political policy is directed from the outside. This was a familiar situation for many newly independent nations. The president of Gabon observed that Gabon is independent, but between Gabon and France, nothing has changed. Everything goes on as before. Is it Gabon or Gabon? Is it? I don't know. One of you guys will tell me. But yeah, relationships don't change. They don't. They change it now. Look at Burkina Faso. Gabon. Okay, I think. Excuse me. This observation was validated when it came to light that French politician Jacques Foucault kept letters requesting military intervention pre-signed by various African presidents in his desk drawer. Wow. So this motherfucker had trumped up letters from various African presidents begging for help. Wild. Man. Maybe it's not so bombastic that these motherfuckers are failing upwards towards authoritarianism, because what the fuck? That's cartoon level fucked up. Wild work. Nkrumah was an intellectual and political giant who led Ghana to independence in 1957, making it the first country to receive independence from Britain in sub-Saharan Africa. A socialist and a nationalist, he spent much of his life seeking to promote unity among third world countries, as he believed that only by working together could newly independent nations resist the influence of their former colonizers. The name of the book is Vulture Capitalism by Grace Blakeley. And welcome, Nuri. Let's see. Unfortunately, the dream of unity proved fleeting. As we will see throughout this chapter, independence did not bring prosperity for most poor states, given the ongoing neocolonial influence of the rich world, which sought to subvert cooperation between third world countries at every turn. For decades, the development of the Philippines was hampered by collusion between the U.S., international institutions, domestic capitalists, and a corrupt political class, which together deprived Filipinos of basic human rights to ensure the country would remain a haven for international capital. Bello himself has referred to the situation faced by the Philippines after independence as neocolonial. We usually think of empires as violent undertakings. As Frantz Fanon observed in 1960s, the presence of conquering and governing a colony is, by definition, violent. But in the context of global capitalism, empire has a more expansive meaning. Capitalist empires are not simply the states capable of winning the most wars. They are the command centers of the capitalist world system. Their corporations, there it is. Their corporations are the largest and most powerful multinationals, extracting profits from all corners of the globe and sucking them back to the imperial core. Their financial institutions are some of the most important nodes in the networks of global finance. The priorities of their governments are forcefully communicated to, and sometimes enforced upon, less powerful states. In fact, at the global level, it is much easier to see the equivalence between economic and political power than it is domestically. The power of U.S. business abroad is maintained through an international order that prioritizes the interests of U.S. capital, promulgated by the U.S. government and its allies. I think a really good example of this is what's happening in Yemen and the retaliatory nature of what's happening in Yemen. Thanks to those stupid ass leaked ass fucking chats, we know that it wasn't to defend Israel. It wasn't to, squash a terrorist cell or any of that shit. It was to open up commercial lanes. It was for commerce. It was for capitalism. So I think that's the freshest example of us seeing what it is that this book is talking about. In fact, at the global level, it is much easier to see the equivalence between economic and political power than it is domestically. The power of the U.S. abroad is maintained through an international order that prioritizes interests of U.S. capital promulgated by the U.S. government and its allies. The power of U.S. finance rests on the central role played by the dollar as the global reserve currency, which is itself a function of American military, political, and economic might. American military power, meanwhile, stems from and helps to reinforce the power of a web of military contractors, weapons manufacturers, and research hubs that provide the expertise and equipment needed to maintain its supremacy. In certain parts of the world, as in Iraq after its invasion, the U.S. government has ruled through private corporations like Halliburton. Hey, you remember the tangent that I had when I read this the first time around, and it was like, holy shit, we went through this already? Like, we had our very own, America had America's made Elon Musk when it came to Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney was Elon. Dick Cheney is Elon Musk if Elon Musk wasn't such a fuck up. Like, Dick Cheney is Elon Musk if Elon Musk had a fucked up father that actually liked him. You know, like, I feel like Dick Cheney's dad loved him and, like, downloaded all the most fucked up things that he could learn about the world to that kid. And then he grew up to be the type of man that will shoot his friend in the face and require his friend to apologize for it. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's true investment in diabolical nature. You know what I'm saying? Elon is like stumbling. You know, he got to be a cokehead to make his diabolical nature come to full effect. I feel like Dick Cheney was stone cold sober for all of these decisions. He probably prefers it. I feel like he's a teetotaler, low key. And he's just like that dedicated. So anyways, yeah. So before we had Elon, we had Dick Cheney. And he used Halliburton to benefit from all of this shit. Like, apparently, controlling Iraq. Anyways, I digress. Empire is, then, about more than formal colonization. It refers to all the processes through which the world's most powerful capitalist institutions plan who gets what at the level of the world economy. Wild shit. It's coke and ketamine, by the way. They call it Calvin Klein because they do both of that shit. Fucking wild, these motherfuckers out here. Yeah, but yeah. So throughout history, this imperial power has often been exercised through horrendous acts of violence that have warped the development of entire societies for decades. Haiti. I don't even need to cough for that. Haiti. Freshest, most fucked up example you can get. But today, it is often exerted in far more covert ways, such as through the secretive system of international courts or international financial institutions imposing rigid conditions on countries trying to access emergency lending. Side note, this is why what Israel is doing is undermining these very institutions. You guys notice, like, they need the World Bank, right? They need the International Monetary Fund. Without those two things, there's no they're dismantling and they're undermining the very tools that they need to maintain this. And that's like one of the things that brings me hope. You know, like, it's probably not going to happen in my lifetime, but I do know that all of this shit crumbles at some fucking point. You know what I'm saying? The Egyptian empire and dynasty, there are Egyptian dynasties that have lasted longer than the rule of Western civilization. You know what I'm saying? Than the rule of the imperialists. Okay, they've only been doing this for 500 years, 600 years, if that. You know, well, really, since 1492 is when this shit really jumped off, and they made it everybody's fucking problem, right? That's not a long time. It's like 600 years. Okay, in comparison to other empires, this shit is fizzling out relatively quickly. And I look for the future of humanity as a species. I look forward to that time. And if reincarnation ever happens, I hope to be reincarnated into the future to when that is happening. Hopefully it's a matriarchy. That'd be dope. That would be dope. I cannot wait to experience. Yeah, I want to be recycled quick enough where I can experience the matriarchy of the future. that our species gets to experience. I just want to chill out for a little bit. You know, be butt naked under a coconut tree. You know, that's what I want. So here's hoping. But yeah, so these motherfuckers be doing wild shit with all this shit. Okay, so America's adoption of the responsibilities of empire was not uncontested. Debates and struggles that took place within state institutions of the kind outlined in the previous chapter led to the U.S. adopting the role of guardian of global capital. As they dealt with problems and challenges at the global level, key actors within the U.S. state came to see American interests as defined, quote, in terms of the extension and defense of global capitalism. Notice how that doesn't say people, citizen, none of that. It's just capitalism. Ultimately, the U.S. state took it upon itself to ensure that no part of the world could close its doors to international investment. This desire to keep the world open to capital, rather than overaccumulation or a struggle for resources, is what explains so many of America's imperial escapades in recent decades. This chapter will analyze the different ways in which empire has been conceptualized throughout the history of capitalism and the way in which imperial power is expressed today. We'll also look at the contradictory ways in which liberals have conceived of empire and development, before showing that the global economy is structured in such a way as to maintain the imperial power of the rich countries at the expense of poor ones. We'll also look at how this international system was designed, quite consciously, to limit democratic influence over economic policy and to neutralize any threats to the power of international capital. So, y'all ready to done? Y'all ready for this? Whew. All right. For you know who that may or may not be here, it looks like it's going to go beyond 6. Sorry, and I love you. Continuing on. Pacifying the natives. Walter, oh God, white people got the weirdest fucking names, yo, man. God damn it, I can't fucking say this shit. Bagehot, Badgett, is that how you say that shit? Walter Bagehot, a 19th century liberal theorist and former editor of The Economist, once wrote that, quote, he sounds like a nerdy guy. Let's get to the higher registers. Okay. The British are preeminently a colonizing people. We are, beyond all comparison, the most enterprising, the most successful, and in most respects, the best colonists on the face of the earth. End quote. That's a better one. Y'all can't. I like that one. We're going to keep that one. That's going to be the villain voice. Y'all missed it. That was a good one. You don't have to give me my props right now, but that was a good one. Anyways, let's keep it going. So, occasionally, consolidating the UK's great imperial power required the allegedly benevolent British to use force against the, quote, natives. Bagehot, though he remained an ardent liberal, believed that it was appropriate for the British state to use force against these backward peoples wherever they stood in the way of the civilizing influence of the British Empire, whether in sub-Saharan Africa, Australia, or Ireland. Thank you, Trini. Thank you. It was funny. So, yeah. Anyways. Continuing on. Oh, shit, I lost where I was. No, I didn't. We're right here. Liberals have always claimed to oppose imperialism and to champion freedom, especially free trade. The close links between imperialism and liberalism have therefore been written out of its intellectual history. But liberals like Bagehot found it quite easy to support both free trade and imperialism, and often quite brutal imperialism at that. In the 18th century, liberal advocates of free trade were writing in opposition to mercantilists, who believed that national prosperity was best protected by maximizing exports and minimizing imports. To the mercantilists, am I saying that? Mercantilists. Yeah, I'm saying that right. Maybe the emphasis is on the wrong syllable. Emphasis is on the wrong syllable. All right, maybe that's what it is, because it doesn't feel right coming out of my mouth. I'm not gonna neurodivergent my way out of that one. Okay, we'll just ignore it. Trade was a zero-sum game, and the balance of payments was the scorecard. Mercantilis. Thank you. Mercantilis. Thank you. My brain feels better. So, those states with the largest current account surpluses were winning, while those with deficits were losing, building up empires within which trade was zealously guarded was seen as the best way to, quote, beat other nations economically, as well as to promote national security. Liberals, on the other hand, argued that the whole world would be better off under free trade. One of the greatest liberal political economists was David Ricardo, who wrote his magnum opus on the principles of political economy and taxation in 1817. Ricardo was both a theorist and a practitioner of capitalism. He made his fortune in the city of London by speculating on events like the Battle of Waterloo. The Battle of Waterloo. Sorry, guys. He used his wealth to support his career as a politician and a leading liberal intellectual, voting for measures to promote free trade wherever he had the chance. With his theory of comparative advantage, Ricardo sought to prove that free trade would always benefit both participants in the exchange rather than only the seller. He argued that it was always more efficient for countries to specialize in producing the things they were best at, rather than trying to meet all their consumption needs through domestic production. Which, that's what the isolation and the tariff shit is Donald Trump essentially withdrawing. It's this stupid idea that he thinks will bring everything back, but really, low-key, a lot of what he's doing is like, I know that the economists understand. Like, even the most conservative economists, like the neoconservatives, they understand that what he's doing is going to undermine American hegemony, right? But I feel like Putin's got something on these people, because it's quite clear that they are very much in bed with Russia. You know what I'm saying? Like, they are in bed with Russia. Like, at the very least, with the Russian capitalists ripping and running around and fucking up the society over there. So, like, they have to have some dirt on these people, for them to do something that is so clearly and palpably not going to work. Like, it's not going to do. It's like, you quite literally go to Econ 101 and learn why tariffs do not work for your capitalist system. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, wowzer. Okay. Continuing on, sorry. With his theory of comparative advantage, Ricardo sought to prove that free trade would always benefit both participants in the exchange, rather than only the seller. He argued that it was always more efficient for countries to specialize in producing the things that they were best at, rather than trying to meet all their consumption needs through domestic production. Such specialization would boost productivity all around, and higher productivity would mean that when they can trade with each other, all countries were able to consume more than they would have if they had worked alone. There it is. That's what that was. When applied to the world economy, the argument has a clear implication. The whole world would be better off if each country produced the commodities for which it had a comparative advantage and traded with other states doing the same. It wouldn't matter if one country was more productive than all the others. That country, indeed, every country, would still benefit from greater levels of specialization than would be possible under autarky, a situation in which each country produces and consumes all the commodity it needs itself. Of course, such outcomes are possible only under free trade. If states, oh man, we're getting ready to learn about tariffs again, you guys. Sorry. If states impose tariffs, quotas, or other non-tariff barriers to trade, then the costs of trade may increase to such an extent that they outweigh the benefits of specialization. Ricardo's theory of comparative advantage was a weapon in the long-running battle between liberal free traders and mercantilists. I feel like I did it right that time. A battle the free traders ultimately won. The victory was not, however, based on the superiority of the liberals' ideas. As Ha Zhongsheng has pointed out, early capitalist states provided immense amounts of support to infant industries, including but not limited to the use of tariffs and quotas. As these industries develop under the careful tutelage of the state, trade barriers were steadily reduced so as to allow powerful new firms to enter world markets and compete at the level of the global economy. While trade barriers may have fallen, the state continued to provide many other forms of support and protection for domestic industry. Yet newly independent states were told they would have to adhere to free trade policies if they wanted to, quote, catch up with the rest of the world. These countries were fed the lie that Britain and America had grown rich through free trade, and that if they only opened their markets to international competition, they would too. Instead, these states found their national economies were dominated by corporations that had been protected by imperialist nations, now preaching the benefits of the free market. This was the imperialism of free trade. When one of the most ardent champion of this view of international development, one of the most ardent champion of the view of international development was Walt Rostow, who published his Stages of Economic Growth in 1960. Rostow was born into a family of Russian Jewish socialists before becoming one of the most ardent anti-communists in the U.S. government. He took up a strategic role in the military during World War II, selecting targets for bombardment to inflict maximum pain on the Germans, and later joined a government department seeking to deploy political and psychological warfare against the USSR. Rostow was ultimately invited to serve in the administration of John F. Kennedy, where he campaigned for various ruthless U.S. invasions. He believed that the U.S. could bomb Vietnam into submission, a strategy that led to the deaths of thousands of civilians. The Stages of Economic Growth propose a linear and teleological model of capitalist development in which societies progressed through several stages, from the traditional phase characterized by substance agriculture or subsistence, there it is, subsistence agriculture and little technological development, through the takeoff phase in which the industrialization, urbanization, and capital accumulation all increase, to the age of, quote, mass consumption associated with high incomes and consumption and a growing services sector. The idea was that development everywhere would look exactly as it had in industrializing Britain. According to the infamous Sachs-Warner hypothesis, countries open to international trade achieve higher long-term growth rates than those closed to trade. Sachs and Warner purported to show that, quote, open economies grew 2.45% points faster than closed ones over the long run. But the categories of analysis used in this paper were problematic at best. While more historically grounded approaches have unambiguously shown the central role played by the state throughout history of capitalist development. Contrary to the predictions of those who argued that free trade would allow poor countries to catch up with rich ones, the structure of the world economy has remained relatively stable over the last several hundred years. There are a small number of wealthy and powerful economies that dominate the world, a larger number of very poor countries that have little power, and the rest lie somewhere in between. It is true that some countries have been able to move up the hierarchy by industrializing, but in the same way as Britain and America, they have done so by protecting their economies before trying to practice free trade. So why hasn't free trade benefited the poor world as much as its advocates believed it would? One of the first answers to this question comes from, you guessed it, Karl Marx. It's our boy Karl. Oh, hold on. I don't even know if... Do I have the thing? Nope. Karl Marx. You guys can't hear it, but they could hear it on TikTok or on YouTube. That's the wrong one too. Nope. There it is. It's the yellow button, you guys. I figured it out. It's the yellow button. So yeah, Karl Marx. Marx saw that the inequalities that existed between countries and regions under capitalism reflected the timing of industrialization in each. Some had been able to industrialize early and dominate surrounding areas, preventing those areas from catching up and leaving them trapped exporting agricultural commodities to industrialized areas. Shit rolls downhill. As we have seen, the state played a central role in development in these places, not only implementing policies to support infant industries, but also, as Marx noted, enclosing common land to create a poor and desperate workforce that could be forced down mines and into dark satanic mills. From their emergence in individual nations, these inequalities eventually became visible at the level of the world economy. As Marxist theorist Nikolai Bukharin writes, quote, entire countries appear today as towns, namely the industrial countries, whereas entire agrarian territories appear to be country. Economic theory suggests that these differences will eventually even out because capitalists in rich countries will invest in poor ones as investment opportunities in their home markets dry up. This investment would be channeled into businesses in the global south, allowing them to grow and ultimately challenge the dominance of established businesses in global north. But mainstream theory doesn't account for the growth of powerful monopolies that would be able to dominate their home markets and eventually large parts of the world market. These multinational corporations easily outcompete smaller ones operating in the global south, using their power over the market to price gouge their suppliers, forcing these smaller firms to cut costs by reducing wages or worsening working conditions. And they often also ally with powerful financial institutions to buy up any competitors that do emerge in order to consolidate their hold over the world market. Moreover, companies headquartered in the rich world can offshore production to the poor countries, taking advantage of low labor costs and reshoring the profits to their home nation. Capitalist states make sure these inequalities persist by preventing people from moving around to find better paying jobs. Here we have the restriction of movement, right? Commerce can move wherever the fuck it wants, but you as a person, you need a visa. You as a person, you need an asylum. Like, you cannot cross these arbitrary fucking state lines. And that's because they don't want you to go chasing the better job. They want you to play fucking musical chairs with your finances. And whoever has the short end of the stick usually is the one that gets fucked. Yeah, and I did mix metaphors. Did that on purpose. Continuing on, sorry. Capitalist states make sure these inequalities persist by preventing people from moving around to find better paying jobs, and by preventing states in the global south from accessing resources and technology that would help them to industrialize. Together, these processes facilitate the generation of super profits or imperial rents for capitalists in the rich world. My nigga, you good? Did he fall off of the couch? Are you alright? You good? Come here. Come here, sleepyhead. You okay? Oh, that was a big stretch. Oh, God. Big stretch. We're gonna go for a walk after this, I promise. Get on out of here. Boop. Get on out of here. Yeah, I think he just slid off of the couch. Because he walked out of here like he wasn't expecting to be walking. Oh, poor Boo. Poor Boo. All right, so, yeah. So, yeah, it doesn't account for the monopolies. Doesn't account for these corporations trying to dictate everything within the global south that needs to eventually industrialize. I think that's why I don't know. I don't fully trust BRICS as of yet. You know, I really don't. But I'm interested, you know, in what the BRICS is coming into, because they're essentially doing the exact same thing. Like, most of the BRICS nations that are the BRICS nations are nations that have kind of outsourced their agrarian, you know, raw material sector to poor countries. So it's like, you know, are they the alternative or are they just the new management? You know what I'm saying? Where did I leave off? Here, moreover, companies headquartered in the rich world can offshore production to poor countries, taking advantage of low labor costs and reshoring the profits to their home nation. Capitalist states, make sure these inequalities persist by preventing people from moving around to find better paying jobs, and by preventing states in the global south from accessing resources and technology that would help them to industrialize. Together, these processes facilitate the generation of super profits or imperial rents for capitalists in the rich world, as well as stunting industrialization in the poor world and keeping these states in a position of dependency. The fusion of economics and politics is a critical part of this model and is something early liberal theorists missed. States consistently seek to protect their capitalists all over the world, whether in the form of taxation, trade policy, or foreign policy. Capitalists always rely on politicians to provide them with opportunities for profit making abroad. Lenin, who in 1917 wrote that imperialism was the highest stage of capitalism, realized that this fusion of state and corporate power would make it even harder for poor states to catch up with rich ones. While this fusion of corporate and political power is largely hidden within modern capitalist economies, historically it was understood to be a central component of imperial power. We have already seen how early capitalist states sought to govern the world economy through corporate sovereigns like the East India Company. The Nazi Party also encouraged the creation of, quote, trusts, combines, and cartels, on the basis that doing so would support the German state's imperial power, at home and abroad. Unions and any other threats to corporate power were destroyed, and a law was passed to, quote, force industries to form cartels where none existed. Unchecked corporate power, fused with that of the state, was a key component of Nazism. In the 1960s, a group of economists from Latin America drew on Marxist theories of imperialism to explain why poor countries remain so poor even after the era of formal colonialism, in response to the errors of modernization theory. Dependency theorists like Raoul Prebisch argued that the world was divided into an advanced industrialized core and a less advanced, predominantly agrarian periphery. The Argentine the Argentine Prebisch, that sounds German as fuck. I don't know. Doesn't sound Latino is what I'm saying. Well, this guy was initially a staunch advocate for free trade. But as U.S. multinationals began to dominate Argentine ones from the 1930s, he shifted to supporting protectionism. Prebisch went on to serve as the first Secretary General of the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, or UNCTAD, or UNCTAD. These entities and they goddamn acronyms, through which he sought to promote the cause of global South solidarity and change the unfair rules of the world economy in favor of poor countries. So, this is somebody trying to change things from within. All right? I think it's safe to assume that Raul is a reformist. I think that's important for us to keep that in mind because he's doing this shit in the 1960s. A lot of things that people have advocated to be done have been done before. So I think it might be important for us to pay attention to how they failed. Since this is a strategy that everybody thinks should, the reformist strategy is the way to go, then let's learn what happened to the previous reformists, right? Dependency theory was based on the observation that poor countries remained dependent on producing and exporting primary commodities to and importing manufactured commodities from rich countries. As they developed, wealthy states with large, powerful corporations and sophisticated technologies saw increased productivity translated into higher wages and higher domestic demand. But poor states with less powerful corporations and limited access to technology were forced to keep wages low to remain competitive, hampering domestic development. Over time, the terms of trade between rich and poor countries declined, and poor states were forced to export ever more primary commodities to afford the manufactured commodities they needed from the rich world. States in the periphery then found themselves at the mercy of the commodities cycle, experiencing severe economic downturns, often coupled with public debt crises, whenever commodities prices fell. And because demand for commodities like food is relatively stable, people can eat only so much. Falling food prices do not tend to translate into higher demand. Instead, they lead to lower revenues for producers. Meanwhile, workers in the core are more productive than those in the periphery, as they're working with more advanced technologies and have better training. These factors also mean they have more bargaining power, so they can demand higher wages. And higher wages allow consumer markets to develop more rapidly in the rich world, creating yet more opportunities for domestic investment for capitalists in the global north. Dependency theorists like Probish realize that because of the dynamics of the commodity cycle and the rules and norms promulgated by powerful states and international institutions, peripheral societies remain unable to industrialize in the same way as core states once were. They are trapped in a position of dependency relative to the core. They have no choice other than to export primary commodities to wealthy economies that need them, but then find themselves unable to convert the revenues from these exports into resources required for industrialization. As we've seen, the divide between the core and the periphery is not only a function of different levels of historical development, it is necessary for the functioning of modern capitalism. Capitalists in the imperial core are able to generate super profits only through their hyper exploitation of cheap labor in the periphery. The hyperdevelopment of the capitalist core comes at the direct expense of the periphery. While claiming a grand civilizing mission to end poverty and promote development, rich countries have in fact underdeveloped the rest of the world in order to enrich themselves. In his book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, Walter Rodney argues forcefully that the wealth of the rich economies comes through the exploitation of poor ones, through trade, colonial domination, and capitalist investment. The exploitation of the global south is a cornerstone of production in the global north, a relationship that yields great profits for corporations headquartered in countries that used to colonize most of the planet. The dependency theorists believed that peripheral states had to focus on industrialization if they were ever to escape the low-income trap. Some leaders of newly independent nations realized this early on. They knew they would have to use the power of the state to protect their domestic industries if they wanted to develop. Often, the balance of class power in these societies actually favored the kind of developmentalist policies discussed in the last chapter, because domestic capital was smaller and weaker and therefore needed more state support. And the USSR was often willing to support independent states to pursue more statist developed paths. As we'll see, many newly independent nations tried to do just this, but with a few carefully chosen exceptions, the US wouldn't let them. If poor states had been allowed to industrialize, they would have been harder to exploit. As a result, when peripheral countries did try to industrialize in the mid-20th century, powerful states, corporations, and international institutions worked together to undermine these efforts. As home to the most powerful capitalists in the world, the responsibility for protecting the system fell primarily to the United States, which worked tirelessly over subsequent decades to maintain the hierarchy of global capitalism and its own position at the apex. Alrighty, guys. I think if it's cool with y'all, we can stop here. Right? We're stopping at page 186. The section that we'll be diving into next week will be Banana Republics. I think that's a good setup right there for our next session. Yeah, this shit is crazy. This shit is insane. Yeah. So, how are you guys feeling? Are we having fun yet? I think I'm going to be particularly triggered by this chapter, especially just understanding everything that's happening with migrants, visa holders, and as a child of an immigrant. That's just going to piss me off. I can feel it. You know what I'm saying? I can feel it because, yeah, like immediately when I read the last paragraph, I thought of Yemen. I thought of Kuwait. I thought of Afghanistan and Iraq. I thought of Iran and the Shah of Iran. Like, there's so many examples of this where countries are either industrializing and trying to protect themselves to get a little bit more of the piece of the pie, and the United States just dismantles their government, or, you know, they've been put under the boot of whichever hegemonic power of the global north exists, just so that, you know, they can exploit as much, you know, resources from them as possible. And it's not a coincidence that the ones that are under the boot are dark-skinned people. Africa, the entire continent, is under the boot of the global north. The poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere is basically an African descendant nation, primarily full of just former slaves. You know, it's that. I don't think that's by accident. You know, I think that this is just white supremacy with extra steps. Maybe they felt a little guilty. They felt like they kept propagandizing that they were civilized, that eventually the later generations was actually drinking the Kool-Aid of thinking that they were more civilized, you know? And obviously you can't behave like grandpa did. That's terrible, you know? So we have to divorce ourselves from imperialism, but not really. Kind of, sort of. We got to divorce ourselves from the aesthetic of imperialism. Shift it to something a little more edgy, a little more cool, a little bit more accepting, you know, so that we can listen to that jungle music without any problems. Yeah. Crazy shit. Oh my God. Wild. What are some of the takeaways that you guys have? TikTok, YouTube. I'm gonna fucking. I'm gonna wait for y'all because I know there's a lag. Is there? Yeah. Shouldn't be. It's okay if you guys don't have any takeaways. That's fine. Hi. Hi, Bubba Boy. Give me like 5 more minutes, okay? 5 more minutes and then we'll go for a walk. Yes. Yeah. I've done. Okay, Bubba. Okay. Why you should shit? Why you should shit, Papa? Okay, sleepyhead. You wanna go for a walk? You wanna go for a long walk? Yeah. Okay, we can do that. Okay. I love you too, Papa. Alrighty. Well, that's it for today. I think we have a great stopping point. Thank you guys for, you know, keeping hope alive and hanging out with me for as long as you have. For those of you who might have missed it, go ahead, swing over to the Patreon. I have some special treats for you guys there. They're finally there. So if you're a nerd and you were interested in watching me react to Castlevania Nocturne Season 2, Episode 1 and Episode 2 are on the Patreon. For those of you who might not be a part of the Patreon, it is free to join it. Okay? All of the content on the Patreon is free. To include all the additional content, all that good shit. You know what I'm saying? All of that is on there for you guys. You just have to be a member. And the membership is free, you know? Yeah, it's a pretty cool spot that hopefully will be able to grow because life is not fucking me. Who knows? But yeah, I'm going to head out. I'm going to give my dog a nice little walkie poo. I'm going to call my girl and, you know, be caking on the phone and shit. You know what I'm saying? But yeah. Same time next week. So instead of it being 3 o'clock in the afternoon, let's make it 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We just shift over. Wait, was it always 4? I don't think it was. No. Okay. Well, next week. Next Saturday. Yeah. And I think next Saturday it will be primarily just TikTok. Because I'll be on the road doing things. Yeah. I too have to be outside at some point, but we're gonna do some, you know, some sweet stuff. But yeah, thank you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out and hanging in there. As per usual, I wish you guys nothing but the best. I hope you guys are having an amazing weekend, a safe weekend. You know, I'm not making no content on TikTok for a little bit because I'm just like over it. I don't want to make any more content on TikTok right now outside of just doing the book club and shit. So I'm kind of just been lurking in the comments. So you guys will see me in the comments periodically, but you probably won't see not a lot of like content for me. Sorry. I don't have anything to say, to be honest. I don't have anything to say. I don't. Nothing nice and everything I want to say is cancelable, you know? So I'm just, you know, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. So I'm mind my fucking business. Enjoy life. Be outside, touching grass and shit, and engaging with my community. But yeah, be good to yourselves. Be good to others. I will see you guys next week. Thank you again. Love you guys. Mucho, mucho. Te quiero mucho. Te quiero mucho. Da, 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 da. All right. Okay, love you. Bye.